Okay, so we're going to have a little look at SQL code now and see how it works and what it looks like. So before we do, here we've got a table. Okay, this table, imagine it's called students. Alright, and we've got in each row here we've got some information about students. These are the field names, okay, and these are the records, and together there that gives us a flat file database. Now if I want to retrieve information from this database, I use SQL commands to do that. So for example, select forename from students where tutor group equals 11A. Now in that table it was called form, so we'll just change it there, and don't forget that the 11A there, we really should put that in speech marks. So select forename from students where form equals 11A, and that would return for me a list of students' names of people that are in 11A. Okay, if I wanted to do 11A and 11B, it would look like this. But actually, for it to work, you do need to reference that field again. So where form equals 11A and form equals 11B, and there you go. You've got your SQL, and we're working. So the command words you can see there are in capital letters. The 6 you need to be familiar with are select, from, where, like, and or. And you can see there that order select, from, and where are the first 3 that you're most likely to use, because you've got to say what you're selecting, where it's from, sorry, from which table, and where the criteria equals a certain thing. Okay, so you also need to know about some wildcards. We've got the asterisk and we've got the percentage sign. The asterisk might be used where you want to pull out a lot more than just one particular field's worth of information. So for example, this here would select all the developers, not just a particular one, but all of the developers from the developers table that live in a city that begins with PA. If we have a look at another example here, this would select all of the developers from a city where within the name of the city the letters A and M appear. Okay, and you can see the percentage sign in action there, so let's just have a little look at that. The percentage sign is used to alternate for more than as an alternate for more than 0 characters. So for example, if I wanted to search in my table here and I wanted people whose names begin with an A, whose forename begins with an A, then I would say where forename like A percentage sign. Here in the developer example, we're doing something here that will get me a list of all of the developers whose name begin with an S. The S comes before the percentage sign. The percentage sign is used to represent any other letters that might be in the name. So it works the other way around as well. You could do percentage S, and that will give you the list of people whose names end with an S. And if you wanted to really fancy, and you might have a very sort of specific search that you're looking for, percentage on percentage, so any letters, then ON somewhere in the word and any other letters after it, and you're going to find the names of the people that fit that criteria. So the percentage sign is used to represent any other letters that might be in that particular field. But there it begins with an S, there it ends with an S, and there it's got ON somewhere within it. Okay, and that is kind of it really. You can see where we use like. It's when we're doing something like this. So if it's very clear what you're looking for, like in my example here, select forename from students, then everything's fine. Okay, but after where, if you're going to use, that's where you're going to see like appear, as you do here, where developer name like. Okay, where I've done there is, in my example, is I've done where form equals. If I'd done where form like, and then I'd done $11, I'd have got all of the forms, and that would have been a quicker way of doing 11A, 11B, 11C and 11D, for example. Key things to look out for are field names. These are the titles of the columns in the database, as you can see just there. From, student, referring to which table you want to call the information from. Where, criteria, and then what you're looking for. And remember, if you're not sure if you're doing it right, throughout your exam there'll be examples of SQL, so you can have a look for those. It's stuff that looks like this, where it goes select from where. You're going to see like come after where, but only if you're doing something like this, where you're where it's not a sort of a clear search, where you're looking for something like this. And that's kind of all you need to know. In your exam, you might be asked to write some SQL, you might be asked to correct some SQL, you might be asked to write the SQL to search for some information from a database. But what I would always say to you is start off by looking throughout the paper for some examples of SQL. If you're feeling not very confident with it, there may very well be some in there that just gets you back on the right path. Reminds you, for example, that it starts select from where. Check for those wildcards and make sure you're familiar with them. That's for all entries. That's to replace some letters in a criteria. And if you have a look in your revision guide, you'll see some other little examples of pseudocode, not pseudocode, I knew I'd say that eventually, of SQL, that you could just look at, get familiar with and feel comfortable with. Okay, that's the end of this clip. Good luck, and if you've got any questions, do come and see me.